Man, I remember when I was in the UK and I was getting them on my face and I was overtraining. Like, obviously we were training hard. I was over with like Kuba and Meg, and they were pushing me to my limits. But there was times where I remember one time I sat up off a leg extension, and like, you know, the pressure at the end of a set when you're squeezing really hard, there was just blood running all down my face, like all onto my t-shirt.
This video is sponsored by Suns. Suns are a men's healthcare brand that offer clinically proven, licensed hair loss treatment for less than the cost of a coffee every day. Follow the link in the description and use the code KICKOFFSessions40 to avail of 40% off your first order. Alright man, let's kick off. It's not often that we do sessions like this in general. What do you think of the setup, number one?
Man, this is so sick. Like, it's an experience to say the least. To
be honest, I didn't even think it was going to be like this as well, because I just wanted, like, I think obviously, like, I've been like following your shit for a long time, but I want to do something proper. You know what I mean? Like, if we're gonna meet up, we're gonna do it proper. We're gonna do it like, I don't know, proper setup, but like, I don't know, this is a pretty sick setup overall.
Yeah, I'm honoured, man. I really am. Pulling out all the stops.
Man, I can't believe you've been recording. How many episodes have you done? Like 20, 25 off your laptop?
I think it's closer to 30. I think it's about, we haven't done one now in a while, since I kind of came away from the bodybuilding and that. So we started doing, because we used to do the normal episodes, and then we started doing the 6 foot plus round table.
Yeah, I wouldn't qualify for that.
No. That is just like, you know, shit talk with the lads. Like, I think we've done about 6 or 7 of them, and then maybe 25, 26 of the normal ones. Man,
it's so weird how, like, it's like, so like yours is obviously like raw as fuck. Even when I'm speaking to Ryan, like, he's like, there's no editing, whatever, you just kind of like clicks and record. They perform as well as something that's like super crisp, super clean. Do you get me?
Yeah.
Isn't that so weird that sometimes it's not about like the setup, it's not about like even like the kind of content strategy. Like, obviously I have shit that I want to discuss, but does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can just like,
man, like, we generally, what we do is we just wing it. Like, we don't have, like, see, like, you have the book there with your questions. Like, we don't do any of that. We just go in completely raw and go for it. But that's like the general bit of feedback we get, is that's what people love. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not editing stuff out. We're not, like, obviously we kind of need to watch what we say and stuff.
Yeah, of course, within reason.
Yeah, but like, I don't think there was one time we had to edit something out in however many episodes we're after doing, like, so people buy into that, you know.
I think as well as it depends on who it is. Like, I feel like you're straight up, like, super, like, honest, like, transparent dude. Same with Ryan. Like, Ryan is obviously like a different personality to you, but he's the exact same. Like, he's very like transparent with what he does. Whereas, and then the guests you'd have on would also be people that are open about what they're doing. So for me, it was a bit different, I think, because like 100 episodes in was like the people that I was meeting I never really knew. Whereas it felt like you knew people that you were recording with, or at least you kind of knew them from like Instagram stuff. This. So when I was meeting people, it was obviously like my first time talking to them as well. So I got a bit more rigid, but like, I don't know, it depends on what suits your style.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think we have known pretty much, well, even just through Instagram and stuff like that, like following on Instagram, we kind of know people's backstories and what they're into, and kind of what we can kind of get away with talking about or not with them, just from kind of what they put out there in their social media.
The usual stuff.
Yeah.
Why did you start a podcast?
Just another platform to kind of express ourselves, because like myself and Ryan, like, from where we are anyway, we were kind of one of the first few people to really kind of put ourselves out there in terms of like bodybuilding, PED use, like mental health, all that. Like, full transparency has always been our thing. So yeah, it was just another platform to do that on. Like, it was during lockdown and we were just exploring new things. We were just after getting the business going, and it was just constantly trying to put ourselves into uncomfortable situations until we got comfortable with it, and then that's a new skill that we can take on. And that was kind of our approach from the start with the whole coaching business, all that.
I think that's what kind of separated you from the very beginning, because it was like, there's 2 of you, which is the brand, and obviously brands kind of grow and they kind of add legs and tails, but it always came back to the 2 of you that were separated and different. How did you always kind of even like work together? Because Ryan was in Cork, obviously he finished university, then he may have went back to Waterford or whatever, but is that like, were you always kind of together and kind of working together, like planning stuff? Like, because even give a backstory as into like how you even got into the game, like, because when I saw you come on, it was obviously like years later. Do you get me?
Yeah, well, actually, it wasn't even that long. Like, I feel like with myself and Ryan, a lot happened, but it was very quick. So when Ryan was in Cork, he was actually coaching me. And yeah, Ryan was my first coach, my first bodybuilder, my first coach. And that's how we started. We didn't really know each other before that. We knew each other from being from the same town, but not like in a friend relationship. Do you get me?
Yeah.
So when Ryan first started coaching me, it was like on a professional basis.
Okay.
And we were doing that for 18 months. 18 months Ryan was coaching me, and that even went into a little bit of when we were doing business together, but I get into that. So by the time we kind of started getting onto like kind of best friend basis, Ryan was back living in Waterford, and we're only about a 10-minute drive from each other. So we saw each other quite often. And both me and Ryan, the type of people we are, is like we like to go out, and like if it's every day, we like to be like sitting down, even if it's like we're not saying anything, just having a cup of coffee together, meeting up. Yeah. So we spend quite a lot of time together, and we had like a group chat on WhatsApp with me and two of the other lads, and you know, we'd be talking like pretty much all day, every day.
Yeah.
And during lockdown, then that's kind of when everything kicked off.
Yeah.
So before we went into the first lockdown, I was managing a gym, Bend On Gym in Waterford, which was it was the biggest gym in Waterford at the time. I was 21 years old when I was managing that, and yeah, everything was going really, really well. Lockdown hit, lost my job. It was sink or swim. So that's when me and Ryan both started the online coaching. Well, no, actually, Ryan had been coaching before, but I don't think he ever had more than kind of like 5-6 clients before.
He kind of did it as like a hobby,
Yeah.
but he was living and breathing it. Like, there's a couple of people that I will just remember from like university. Was Ryan one? He was always a guy that was like in the gym super early, or else like super late. No, sorry, he was usually in the gym early, and then he was usually in the library super late.
Yeah.
And that's how I got to like know him, because I didn't necessarily know him that well. And whenever I saw him, obviously we just had a couple interactions, but I just knew him as that guy. Dara is also similar. Dara was the same guy who was just like in the gym, always banging it out, but he was kind of just quietly doing his own shit, you know, and that's what spoke much more volume to me than the guys who were trying to like push their narrative. This is what I'm trying to like sell or get people into I don't know, some sort of sales funnel as a fucking online coach, you know?
Yeah. Well, Ryan is just a workhorse. Like that's how he is. And it's funny, like you were saying, we're very different, but we're very similar. Like the way I always describe Ryan is like we're like yin and yang. Like Ryan is the kind of head down study, like he's into, like he's really, really good at all that kind of stuff. I've always been more of like a kind of people person.
Yeah.
Like learn through chatting to people, like have like experience like this podcast. Like I learned so much from the podcast just from chatting. Like that's kind of how we done it, but it worked. And Ryan kind of brought me up on the knowledge side of things when you get down into like the science side of like bodybuilding and all that, and then I helped Ryan a lot with, say, kind of how to present himself and people skills and stuff. So you know, it worked really, really well. And obviously the two of us are kind of not after going our separate ways, but we're on two different paths now. But I don't think that I would be anywhere near where I am now without Ryan, and I could probably safely say he'd be the same.
Of course, yeah.
Just from like a business point of view.
It's very strange because usually like people are doing this on their own, you know what I mean? So like even for yourself, like how come you went with Ryan, let's say, to do it? Because like a lot of coaches can just do their social media and then try to build up people like that individually, but then you kind of went on that brand approach, which is unique, because like there's no right way to do things, which I've just learned from podcasting, from business, from doing other things. There's a variable different ways, you know? So when you went together, it looked like you could scale it easier, because any type of coaching, consulting, mentoring, you're always capped on time. Now, again, I know you lost your job, so you had that opportunity whereby you have unlimited time, but some people don't have that. Yeah. I don't have that, for instance. Like I don't have unlimited time, and as a result, then it can be difficult to do on your own. To get me, it presents new challenges, like essentially. Yeah.
Well, how it started, me and Ryan actually weren't originally doing it, like we were doing it on our own.
Yeah.
So during lockdown, when I started my online coach and Ryan had his kind of going in the background, like we were talking about it or seeing each other every day and bouncing ideas off each other, and I was like, right, well, this is my idea, like, you know, and then Ryan would go off and try it, and Ryan would be like, right, I'm thinking of doing this, and we do it together. And then that just went on for so long, we were just eventually like, we may as well just do this together, like.
Yeah.
And where Level Up came from was like during lockdown, in between when I lost my job to when we started it, I was going through a really, really bad time, like suicidal, bad mental health. And Ryan used to come out to me every day, and like this was when people weren't meeting up during lockdown, like, you know, he was coming out.
Don't tell the fucking health police on that.
Yeah, I think we're okay to talk about it now. We're kind of gone past the COVID fear. But he was coming out, and like Ryan kept saying to me, like, this is the year we level up. We're going to work harder than everyone. You know, when everyone else is like in lockdown, not doing anything, we're going to be working. And he like just level up stuck to me. And like that's essentially where the name Team Level Up came from. So Ryan was actually Team Level Up on his own first, and I was just Dave Hartrey coaching, and that's what we were building. And then we joined forces. It was about, I'd say, about a month and a half later. Fuck
man, that's sick. How come you started feeling like kind of down essentially when lockdown? Was it around lockdown or was it kind of in general?
Yeah. Like I've always been a very like social person, as I was saying, like meeting up with my friends all the time, and then I was always big into the gym. But the gym for me as well was an area in which I socialised, talked to the members, done classes.
How did you get into that? Like, were you like, what was your kind of early time like in terms of, was bodybuilding or fitness always for you, or did you have like other options when you were younger?
No. So like I was like the kind of people you were talking about in college earlier on. I was the polar opposite. Like I just used to go out and party, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, kind of used college as an excuse to just, you know, go out on a Wednesday night.
Wednesday, fucking Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, literally. And it was after college then, I was still kind of, no, it was actually during college. Towards the end, I kind of started getting my life together a little bit, and I managed to get the job in Ben done. I was only part-time, like literally bottom of the food chain, and then within a year, I think it was a year or 13 months or something, I was managing the place. And at the age of 21, like I had to cop on, do you know what I mean? Like, and that type, like some gyms are very laid back, this gym was not. Like it's very kind of corporate, like you do everything by the book, and you know what I mean, you have to be clean shaven, wear a name tag, like all this.
It's an organisation, it's not just a fucking random gym.
So I had to like really just clean up my act with that, and I think that allowed me to mature very fast. And from there I just copped on pretty much, like, and turned into a completely different person to who I was in the college, like, because when I was working in Ben Dunn, that's when I was exposed to kind of like bodybuilding. There was like one or two bodybuilders in the gym, and before I'd only been kind of, you know, one of those lads who go into the gym and get a pump before a night out, you know.
The usual shit.
And like,
that's how everyone gets in, though. That is how everyone gets in, because you go there because like you're probably insecure. Even like I was, like obviously like I'm not like a big dude, so like I was obviously into the gym for those reasons when I was younger, and then as time goes on, you're like, oh yeah, I actually like this. It actually helps me in other aspects of my life, and also you also want to look good. Like there's no two ways about that. But I think everyone uses that initially, and then they go off and do better things then, or start businesses around it, whatever.
You find your path with it, and that's kind of it. Like I found my passion within bodybuilding. Like Ryan was already heavily into bodybuilding when he started coaching me, and we spent a long time kind of shifting from that kind of like, you know, gym lad who wants to go in and get a pump to like bodybuilding. Like there was a lot of difficult conversations he had to have with me about, like, you know, not just going in and testing my 1 rep max when I wanted to, and you know, managing my recovery and like training properly, and not just like going for the bigger numbers. And it took a while to do it, but when I started getting into it, like I really got into it, and loved it. And then obviously Ryan was so heavily into it as well, it was easy to bounce off each other. And
you get that tunnel vision, man. You're just like both looking at one thing.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's the best way to get results.
Yeah, and there wasn't many people doing it at the time. Like I feel like now, 2.5, 3 years later, a little bit longer, but it's just everyone seems to be doing it. Whereas
my feeling on this, and I actually want to speak to a couple people on this, and even when I spoke to Josh Bridgman recently, my thoughts on this was the fact that I think people have seen the opportunities that other people have gotten, like the Guzmans, the Joe Delaney, the Rob Lipstick. Rob Lipstick's a great example. Everyone used to shit on him in Ireland. Everyone used to shit on him. They used to see him in nightclubs, they used to see him in festivals and all shit on him. A couple of years later, everyone wants a piece of it. And that's what I thought was very interesting, is the fact that I was never ever kind of like ousting him, saying that like what he was doing online, because he was very much like an American based bodybuilder. You ever notice that kind of ability? But then as time goes on, people want a piece of the pie. They want to get involved in online coaching or whatever, because they want their own variation of it. And I think that's a very interesting observation of just anything in life. Like even businesses, people always shit on it first. There's the negativity, there's the how's the word, there's a denial, I suppose, and then after a while then they want to get involved. And I think a lot of that in Ireland just comes back to the small town mentality, and That's why you got to get out of there, man.
Yeah.
Man, it's fucking toxic.
Yeah.
It is 100%. It's just so toxic because it's not even like the town you come from is small. It's like the country you come from is small, and then therefore you can't be doing this. You know, you need to go here. You need to be in this position. You need to work for this company and things like that. You know, so I felt that you're not going to be able to push on unless you can detach from that. And this isn't like a shitting on Ireland thing. It's more so like you need to be able to detach mentally.
Yeah.
Do you get me? From an identity.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think for the person going through it, like the sooner you detach from all that and try and separate yourself, like I remember it very clearly in my head. Like before, I would have been like, oh, I don't want to be posting this on Instagram. Don't want to
piss someone off.
Yeah, who's gonna think about that? But like, I was so clear. I remember I went through my Instagram, like unfollowed literally anyone who doesn't educate me, motivate me, or like make me laugh. You know, pretty much like, or you know, that I know quite well.
Yeah,
they all just got the boot, and I just stopped caring about it because I think everyone likes to shit on it until you've made it, so to say. Do you get me? And it's like, oh, what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? Oh, they're actually after making something. Fair play.
Exactly,
you know?
Man.
And like, you just need to get to that point. But I think a lot of people don't break out of that mentality of trying to impress people, if you get me.
Definitely, man. And I think a big thing around that as well is the fact that no one is there to watch the kind of 0 to 1. They don't want to, you know, be supportive when you go from 0 to 1. But when you get there and you get up to 100, that's when people want to do it. But the thing with this is that social media is like a fucking weird game, because even my podcast, I needed to go from 0, literally 0. Like, this is my launch 100 episodes ago, to try build something that's successful. It's not successful in many ways. I'm still getting there, right? But what I'm trying to say is that you need to be public about it, and the fact you're public about it then opens up for criticism.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was building a business, right, let's call it it's an e-commerce business, and I'm just sitting in the trenches. I'm 12 hours on my laptop, 24/7, all the time. That's fine, because you're doing it in private. I'm not on Instagram telling people I'm building this. So you could go off and do that and have great success and not be worried about it. But when you're doing something that's public, there's the difficulty of doing it. And then you got to think about all the other people that are looking in at you, and then you got to be able to discount that, you know. And it was a fantastic guy, Nick Harlambus, who was on my podcast. I actually didn't get reference in our podcast as well, on your show. And he was saying that fundamentally nobody actually cares, which is true. Mm-hmm. That, like, you know, they're not like sitting there like waiting for Dave to upload a new Instagram, but they have those passing remarks. But overall, they're not really thinking about it.
Yeah.
But we hang on to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, we're hanging on to that tiny little small thing. And a good example is even like comments on YouTube or whatever. Sorry, if I get like, so one of them, my hair loss videos has like 400 comments. If I get 399 positive comments, you're like, oh, it's amazing. If I get one negative comment, you hang on to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, like, that is the thing about being in the public eye. I think it inflates your ego at an accelerated rate when you are getting the positives, you know, and it's that kind of building up. And as you said, you feel like it's everyone, like, what you said there really stuck. Like, I remember when I was going through my prep, I did feel like everyone was like waiting on me to upload and waiting for me to do that. And it's only kind of when I stood back and I was like kind of detached from the bodybuilding scene a little bit, I was like,
I don't matter as much.
Like, what was going on through my mind? Like,
yeah.
But you know, some people get sucked into it more than others, and you know, I think it's, yeah, like, look, you can kind of take from it what you want, but like, some people thrive off that and they never break out of that. No, like, the further down you go, it just gets more and more and more inflated as the followers go up, and you know, the love keeps going. And I think when you do kind of get that inflated ego, let's say, it becomes a lot easier to block out the negative, if that makes sense. Because like, that's definitely what I found, and it allowed me to kind of block out anything with my skin, like with my skin and stuff like that. When I was getting so much good, when someone did like make a nasty comment about my skin or something, I was like, you know, it's only one person, when I probably should have been paying attention to it, if that makes sense.
Because it's important.
It is important.
That was important, yeah.
But yeah, you can just get so, you know, like tunnel visioned with it, that everything else kind of becomes, you know, you just fob it off, kind of.
Yeah. So probably going back to the original point about the actual mental health part that we completely went off. How did it start, and like, what did it feel like? Like, what were you doing? Like, how did it materialize?
It started, I suppose, just from complete like loneliness. Something that I've never really had before. I've always had like a big group of friends growing up. You know, we all lived very close to each other. I was always with the lads, and then, as I said, always in the gym, talking to people, and then it was just all that was just whipped out from under me. It was after losing my job, and I would say, like, when I look back on it, that for me is kind of when the mental health issues started. But I'd say it was going on a lot longer than that, and it was just kind of covered with staying busy. So when that was taken away from me, it was very clear that there was problems there. And I suppose it comes down to my personality as well. Like, I feel things a lot. Like, when I'm happy, I'm really happy. When I'm sad, I'm really sad. So when it hit me at that extreme, like, I just felt empty, like, absolutely empty. And then in lockdown and everything, and like, it got to a stage where there was one night where I was standing on top of a cliff, and I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, thankfully, you know, I'm here today. But I remember in that moment, like, I really didn't know what was going to happen. And
what was going through your mind?
Just like, I just felt worthless. Like, there was nothing worth living for. Like, I felt like when all that was kind of whipped away from me, that I just had nothing. We didn't know what was going on with COVID. I think the COVID was like a big, I don't even know how to put it into words. It made everything, it made it seem like there was nothing else but COVID. That makes sense. And we were all brainwashed into thinking that, like, and we didn't know when it was going to end. And I remember at this stage, like, we'd went into like a 2-week lockdown, and then it was extended by 6 weeks, and then it was extended again. And it just, like, you know, the fear mongering on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, it seemed never ending, and I just wanted out. And yeah, it's kind of like, thinking back on it, I've kind of blocked it out mentally. I think that, like, it's very hard to remember like specifics. That's kind of how I deal with a lot of things. If I have like a bad time in my life, and it's not really healthy, like, but if I have like a bad period of time in my life that I look back on, like, that, like, it just seems like it's kind of, there's certain parts blanked out and I don't remember it. So it is, but like, during that time, then that's when me and Ryan really got close. As I said, like, him and one of the other lads, Aaron, as well, was coming out, and they were sitting with me every day, and like, that's when we kind of got Level Up started. And like, Level Up for me was like, it saved me, like, do you know what I mean? And just shifting all my attention and focus and drive towards that, and like, where I was kind of putting it into work, and like, trying to impress the people who are above me, and like, you know, trying to have everything by the book. With that, I was putting that attention into myself and into my business and doing things the way I wanted, and it just gave me like a new lease of life. And it was just go from there. And I kind of like use that in a way of kind of like, you know, if I'm working, I'm not thinking about what's going on in the background. And yeah, it just kind of got better over time. Now I'm
finding purpose, man. You literally like found just a purpose to put your mind into. And it's funny because it doesn't have to be the best thing or the most optimal, but like, you shift that like kind of anxious behavior and just put it into something, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is like a fucking age old thing, man, for not necessarily curing depression, but dealing with like difficulties. Is like, you put your mind into something and you just go gun hole on it, you know? And you can go a bit too far, whatever, but like, that's what I always recommend. It's always like, action beats that anxious behavior. And not necessarily you were feeling anxious, but it's more so like, you wake up, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit here and let, you know, all these negative thoughts flow in, or am I just going to get up, open my laptop, start responding to a couple of clients, planning some social media posts, getting into the gym, planning my nutrition? That alone, man, I don't know. I can't speak highly enough of it, because it's exactly what I did. When you lose that passion and purpose, it's fucking difficult to get back. But when you find it, like you did, you just double down,
drive it on. And like, yeah, it was a bit of a crazy time, but like, I'm grateful for it in a way. Do you know, because like all that happened, like it felt like my whole world was crumbling out from under me, and like it gave me what I have today. Now, since then, my life has taken another crazy turn, like, as you know, but and I kind of
things don't like go back to normal.
No. Like, and I feel like I'm going through a little bit of an adjustment phase like that now again, with like since I stopped bodybuilding. So, yeah, I'm still feeling a little bit lost, still trying to find myself a little bit, but trying to kind of try new things, shift my attention, like just kind of doing the exact same as what I done then, because a couple of weeks ago my mental health wasn't good again, like, and for the very same reason. But just as I said, just trying to think back, remember what I done to get out of it the last time, and trying to repeat it now again.
You're kind of like developing tools to be able to handle these situations. You know what I mean? It's like stressful situations, it's difficult situations, but as you go through them, each time you get better at handling them.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like life lessons that are kind of happening over time. Let's kind of get into some of that even at the moment now. So even like when you were bodybuilding, so what made you want to essentially go on gear and take it up to that next standard? As in, like, why do people want and need to go to that next stage?
Being completely honest with you, at the start it was I want to get big quick. Do you know what I mean? And like it's not the way it should be, you know. Thankfully I ended up developing a passion for it, and like I think my reasoning was justified a little bit more.
Do you think that people develop a quote unquote passion because they've just put everything into it? Does that make sense? As in, like, do you just run so much tests that this is your passion, as in it alters your perspective? Or do you, not you, I'm saying in general with other people?
I do think that people get into it for the wrong reasons, and they convince themselves they want it, when in actual, like, they make it seem like they want it. And you know, the Instagram posts are like, I was guilty of doing this myself for a little bit, like, you know, you're putting it up, this is what I love, this is what, like, I was fucking born to do, like, but on the inside,
sorry, all the tests as well.
Yeah, you're like you're fucking suffering on the inside, like, yeah, like, and obviously, yeah, the tests and stuff like that, it can mess, like, I think it affects some people more than others,
of course.
Like, some people, their personality completely change on it. Some people can, you know, stay relatively the same. So, and I suppose same with like the side effects and stuff like that. Some people get away with taking steroids, some people don't, you know what I mean? There's no, like, you can do it like the perfect all the time, you know what I mean? Take all your health supplements, pin at the right time, don't take the piss with your cycles, but just some people can't get away with it.
Of course.
And that's physically and mentally.
Yeah, because like there is that element of like hair loss, because basically, like, when you're adding so much testosterone, you're increasing your chances of the conversion to dihydrotestosterone, which means your ability to lose hair. So your DHT levels, dihydrotestosterone, can increase or decrease. I'm suppressing mine with a lot of my intervention that I'm doing, but you can actually increase those as well. And that's one side effect, that if you have the hair loss gene, that'll happen to you naturally. And then same with, I suppose, I don't know, like, the kind of chemical side of it from like an anger and a rage perspective, but there's obviously some substance there. And same with like acne from that perspective. I feel like you were just part of that 1% that gets the worst of it.
And like I what you said there, like, I feel like even with the anger and stuff like that, like, if you're a dickhead before you start taking steroids, you're going to be just 10 times more of a dickhead after. But you know what I mean? If you're a nice chill guy and you're a nice person and all that, like I don't think it really turns people. Now, this is like talking like test. I think when you're getting into like trend and stuff like that, that's a completely different ball game altogether with it. Like, but,
in what way? Because I'm so like unaware of this stuff.
So like, I just, like, trend does change your personality. Like, well, from anyone I've seen, personally, like, I've seen, like, even with myself, like, when I look back on when I was cycling it during my prep, and like how I was with Shola during that, it's like, best way to describe it is like when you go out on a night out and you get really, really, really drunk and you make a fool of yourself, and you're looking back on it the next day and you're like, oh my god, like, what was I doing? That was me looking back on when I was taking tren. I've seen it with like friends and stuff like that, like, and you don't notice it at the time. That's the thing. Like, you could flip out over like the smallest little thing that was, like, say, nothing to do with someone, but it's their fault. Do you know what I mean? And like, it's hard to convince someone that they're wrong. Like, there's been times where I've done really stupid things, like, and say my girlfriend Shola is trying to talk me around it, and like I just was not seeing, like, it was just I was right, and that was it. And that kind of seems to be the most common trait with people that I have seen.
Christ, man, what was your like expectation versus reality on gear?
Like it what. Like, obviously, I'm going to be a very biased opinion, because I feel like everything that could have gone wrong with gear went wrong for me. So, like, I lost my hair, like.
You didn't lose your hair.
Oh, it's coming back now.
Coming from a guy who literally examines hair on like a fucking hourly basis, you haven't lost your hair.
Yeah, but like it's gotten so much healthier and stuff like now since I did come off it, but I was losing it quick, and like obviously the acne and left with like the keloid scars, and I was getting like bald patches in my beard. I remember when I went into my physio, David Roach, after I'd come off gear, like the first thing he said to me, he was like, "Geez, David, I've never seen your eyes so white. Like there's like a little yellow twinge to them," and so it's just like my body was screaming at me like, "Stop!" Do you know what I mean? Just stop. And when I was in that like frame of mind, it was just stopping wasn't an option. You know? Yeah.
Christ, do you think there was a way around it for you? Like, as in, like when your skin was started getting worse, was there a way that you could have potentially prevented it from going that bad? Or?
Yeah, like I don't think I could have prevented it from stopping, but I could have reduced like how bad it got. Definitely. Just cycles with less androgen load in them. Like I definitely could have came away from certain steroids and used like smarter choices with it pretty much, but it was all, we were just trying to figure it out at the time, like what's going on, like why is this happening to me, and like realistically I should have stopped, but by the time it started getting bad, like I had one outbreak. And
did you have spots previously? Were you someone who was prone to spots growing up?
I did get like the odd few spots, but I wouldn't say I would have had like bad acne or anything, you know. But yeah, like I might have had like one or two on my face every couple of weeks, like, but definitely not bad. I wasn't one of those teenagers who, had scars on my face or anything like that. Like,
can I just say as well how good your skin is now, though, man? Like, honestly, man, like I wouldn't say this otherwise. Like, it's literally leaps and bounds. Like, it's completely different, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So even like, I don't know what you're using. Are you using like some castor oil or some shit, or some things you should kind of use for even your face for like, for bio oil and whatnot. But
I'm literally just using a CeraVe face wash in the shower, and just like moisturising, like that is kind of stuff that I probably could have been a little bit better at before. But
try even using bio oil. Bio oil, or like I use coconut oil on my hair. You could use lavender oil, rosemary oil as well, but they're all really good for like kind of those open wounds, and just kind of like that's what they are. They're all miniature open wounds, and that healing process. But basically, I know it's a side note, but it actually is like you should be confident about it, because you have came back from the worst it could be, and it's really good now.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you. What were we saying before?
About kind of the outbreak, like as in even like so.
Oh yeah, so like, during the first lockdown, I kind of had one outbreak, and I was getting quite big scars on just my like mid back, that kind of area, and it stopped then. And like we'd gone by, I think it was about 8 months with nothing, and I was just left with like the keloid scars. Now, like going through that was like torture. Like it was literally like being tortured when my skin was like that, because they're not normal spots. They came up in like big boils. Then when they popped, there was like a big open wound. And if you think of like every time you press your back against the bench, or drive a car, or lie in bed, sit down, watch telly, like you're pressing your back against it, and then when you sit up, because it's kind of like wet the way it was kind of like a boil, it was just ripping and reopening. Reopening. Man, that was a couple of times a day. So
how did you sleep with it? Because like you need recovery as a bodybuilder.
Like it was, my sleep took a massive hit, and this is kind of where I fell into the next problem, which was smoking weed. I was using weed to fall asleep and be able to kind of keep myself asleep at night, and just kind of, and that's a completely different path we can go down. But yeah, that was kind of when like lockdown and when my skin was getting bad. Like,
what else was happening with those, like, when you were training?
Like, it was just like I couldn't wear white clothes, any coloured clothes, just black clothes, because it was just blood all over. Like, I can whip up some pictures after and show you, like, of my t-shirts. Like, it would literally be top of the neck down to just blood. But I didn't care, because I was just training, you know, just IFBB pro card, all I want, you know what I mean? Just go. And so anyway, that was the first one. We had like a little bit of a break. Then I had a second outbreak during the last lockdown. Yeah, the last lockdown we were in.
It's been so fucking many, I don't even know which one that was, but go on.
Then the second one, it started spreading to like the tops of my shoulders and my back, which I'd never gotten it before there. And then my last outbreak then was when I went to the UK. When I was doing that trip, and that's when it started. Sorry, I had a few on my chest, but it started spreading down my arms, down my chest, on my face. It was only the last outbreak I started getting it on my face and that. And yeah, that's kind of the time frame on it. But man, I remember when I was in the UK and I was getting them on my face, and I was overtraining. Like, obviously we were training hard. I was over with like Kuba and Meg, and they were pushing me to my limits. But there was times where I remember one time I sat up off a leg extension, and like, you know, the pressure at the end of a set when you're squeezing really hard, there was just blood running all down my face, like all onto my t-shirt. Like, it was like something out of a fucking horror movie or something, like just all over. And that, like, even when I was training that hard, like, that alone would cause, so even if I wasn't like leaning my back against something, say if I was doing an RDL, for example, doing it, like that pressure at the end would literally cause them to explode. And they're just reopened then, and they just never got a chance to heal, which is why they got as bad as they did.
Fuck, man.
Like, again, just
I'm sorry, but this is actually nuts, though.
Man, like, this is how fucked up it gets, man. I remember, and I still kind of get it the odd time. Like, when I'm blowing my load when I'm having sex, like, that can cause them to pop. Like, it takes away from like the sensation, and it just goes to like the itchiness of like the scars. Or at the time, it was like them popping. I could feel them popping. Like, not a fun time, man.
When did you say like enough was enough?
It was during my prep. It was during my prep. I think I was 9 weeks out when I pulled it, and there was a very close family member of mine who was struggling mentally, and I was so in the just tunnel vision at this time. So just to give you a little bit of a time frame, I went over to the UK. When I went over there, that to me was like going over, training with Kuba, training with Meg, like being their training partners for 2 months. That is like if you're mad into football and you're a diehard United fan, and going over, playing with the United team, training with them, hanging out with them, you know what I mean? Like, so I was on such a buzz with that, and it was just drilled in, focused on prep. So I was doing that, and I remember like one of my family members was telling me that another family member was like struggling mentally, and, you know, having a really bad time at work, and, you know, and it was just in one ear and out the other, because I was just like, this is the mindset you get on, like, you're just like a robot. And that had went on for a while, and it was only when I came back and I was out for a walk with them, and one of the family members said to me, they were just like that they were suicidal, and the only reason they hadn't done it was because they couldn't leave their family behind them. And that when I heard that, I was like, what? Like, I didn't even know this was going on. I was being told it, but it wasn't registering with me, and I needed to be there for the people around me. My relationship with Shola was literally on the verge. Like, I had pushed it that far because I was just so hard to be around. A mixture of like the drugs, just being in so much pain all the time, like obviously then prepping on top of that then as well, like being hungry, like there was just, it was just a big concoction of shit like thrown there, and like that to me when I was out on that walk was kind of the whoa, okay, I need to take a step back and I need to like look at my life and get my priorities straight. And yeah, like I had to be there for my girlfriend, had to be there for my family, and I couldn't keep going the way I was going and do that. Bodybuilding is a very selfish sport, and some people can get away with it better than others. I'm not saying everyone will go through this if, you know what I mean, you prep and take drugs. Like I think mine was a very specific case. Man,
but it's the same with everyone though. Even Josh, when he was describing it last week, like he's been through like 10 competitions or something over his life. He was saying that he goes through those selfish moments, and he used the exact same word, selfish. He won't be pissed off me saying that. He's saying that he gets very internalized, very focused. You know, it's only like the prep, the training, diet, whatever, and he wasn't giving enough time to his girlfriend, to his family, and whatnot. And that's when he wanted to go to a therapist, and he went to a therapist to just have someone to speak ideas off and bounce ideas off. Man, I should have went to a therapist. So when I was competing, I know it seems like years ago, but like even during that period, I forgot everything. The only reason why I was actually engaging with other people was because I lived in a house with other people, and they fucking hated me at the time.
Yeah,
for sure, because I was up early, I was on locals. I did a stupid prep in like 8 weeks. It was a terrible idea. I spent 8 weeks traveling, finished up in Ibiza, came back and did an 8-week prep. That's just like the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But basically, I became so intolerable, and it didn't even matter. I didn't want to fix situations, to get me. Whereas now, like, if I have a disagreement with my girlfriend or with someone, you want to sit down and kind of work it out and whatnot, you know. But it's funny because like it happens at all different times. Like, so I'm in a deep cut, which is nothing compared to a prep, but I still have those things. I still get pissed off. I still get, aggravated, poor sleep and stuff like this, you know. So it kind of seems like me that, you know, some people doesn't happen, that's sure. But it seems like to me that this stuff brings out possibly the worst in everyone. Do you get me? Like if you have something that's a niggling kind of effect, this can amplify it. You know? And it's not necessarily to say for bodybuilding, because bodybuilding is just the example, but it's the same with a business, you know? When you go balls deep in something and you forget about everything else and you just focus on one thing, other things have to go in your life. You know what I mean? So for some people, that's their training and health and fitness, which is why they end up being fat and like 30 years old, genuinely, because they just put everything all their energy into one thing. Other people, it's relationships. They just scrap out people, they cut people out. So you need to, because you don't have unlimited time, like we went back to originally, you know.
But I think like some people handle it a lot better than others. Say for example, like, and again, I don't want it to seem like I'm saying like trying to turn people off bodybuilding.
Definitely not. Yeah.
Ryan, for example, handles it extremely well. Like a million times better than I handle it, you know. And that was my first prep. Like Ryan has kind of gone through it before, and you do get better at it with experience. And you know, maybe if circumstances were different, like I would have handled it a lot better. But like I handled it poorly. It's
this is an anecdotal experience.
Yeah. But yeah, as I said, some people can get away with that. Some people like enjoy being disconnected from everyone, and you know, like just putting everything into it and just being selfish with it, and they can get away with it. And like everyone's relationship is different. Everyone, like, you know, it's
multivariable, multifactorial as well. You know what I mean? So that's always happens. How do you feel about being kind of disconnected from the lads, unquote? So like, you know, you're doing different stuff. You're just not from a friendship perspective, but I mean just from a bodybuilding perspective. When you stepped out of that sphere of you know, trying to be an IFBB pro, did you feel kind of lost? How did you feel about that?
Man, lost is like the best word that can sum it up, pretty much. Like, when I was bodybuilding, like I didn't follow anything that was going on outside bodybuilding. Didn't follow any celebrities. Didn't know anything. The news, what was going on with the world. Like if it wasn't bodybuilding, I didn't know about it. Like, which is kind of fucked up looking back on it. Like
it is, but I suppose you do need that focus for success.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. So obviously when I stepped out with that, and like all my friends were bodybuilders, and you know, at the time I hadn't come around to being in a mindset where I can kind of, you know, try to like go off and do different things, I was still just very much focused to I have to be 100% in something. It's no longer bodybuilding. And when I stepped away, I was like, right, I need to find my new thing right now. Do you get me? Because I need to be going. And it took me a long time to kind of come around to that. And I suppose I went a bit too far the other way then, where like when I was so disconnected and feeling lost from everyone, I was just in my own head and fucking like Ryan and Connor and the lads were all after moving to Manchester, and you know I didn't
you could still do that though, you know.
So yeah, I was like, Manchester was my original plan. Like I think like me and Ryan wanted to go to Manchester first, like, and there's a big group of people over there now, like where that was my plan originally. At the moment over there, it's a very, like, all the lads over there, it's a bodybuilding circle. I'm trying to find my own new way, and I think putting myself in that environment would be counterproductive. Like, I can't do it to the extent that I used to. I can't even train like I used to, because and this was a big thing for me as well, towards the end of prep and stuff, like, you know me, like me and Ryan, we go balls to the wall with training. Like, we leave nothing on the floor. For a long time before I stopped, my skin would stop me in a set before my muscle would fail. Yeah. Because like even now there's no open cuts. What happens is when that pressure build up at the end, like when towards like the last 4 or 5 reps, they get so unbearably itchy that I need to jump out of the thing. Like I don't even know how to describe it compared to anything else, but it's so itchy, it's like pain, like really, really sore. And like I could have to stop in the middle of a set and literally just go like that, you know what I mean? And like that's from here all up my shoulders and all down my back. And I just couldn't train how I used to be able to train, and I stopped enjoying it. And that's why I'm still trying to find like my new path with it. Like I came over here, joined Soma, done a bit of boxing, I'm trying to go down to like the combat sports. Like I'm enjoying that, and I'm trying to find my feet with that at the moment. And I think, as I said, just going to Manchester and being in that bodybuilding environment would be, it wouldn't help me.
Of course. How do you feel, so kind of like even when you're taking a step back from the guys and whatnot, like I know you mentioned this kind of loss, but did you have kind of like an identity crisis, because you were the bodybuilder, you were known to it. Even my mate Tom, when I was first introduced by you, it was from your bodybuilding videos. I think you were talking about your skin at the time or something like that. Anyway, so you were kind of known as that, and this is interesting because it's not necessarily about bodybuilding, and that's why I wanted to get to this as well, because it's more like identity in general. Mm-hmm. Like, people might recognize me as the podcaster or whatever, and like that would be wrong because I do multiple other things in my life, just in general, very interested in training and whatnot. And I've actually been listening to a lot of podcasts around this recently, and that kind of band Imagine Dragons, I don't listen to it, right? But the guy Ray Reynolds, whatever his fucking name is, he said that he struggled huge with depression, suicide and everything, because he was known as the guy from Imagine Dragons, right? He was on Lex Fridman's podcast, and he said that he got super, super famous, right? And even just well known by people, and everyone knew him to be this one person, but that was only one small instance of who he is. He's that rock star that goes up on stage a couple times a week and plays to 100,000 people. However, there was the whole other aspect of his life where he was like a family guy. He had a lot of issues. He was really introverted. He loved podcasts. He loved reading. And he always felt that he was never able to pull out that side of his personality. And then he said it got really strange when he started hanging out with his local friends or even his families. His family, like blood family, but family, would even put him into a bracket of the famous guy or that particular character. And that's what leads people to being kind of, they have that kind of identity crisis. And funny enough as well, have you ever heard of Ali Abdaal, the podcaster? He's a YouTuber, podcaster. He was a doctor from Cambridge. Okay. So, incredibly intelligent, finished top of his class in Cambridge, whatever. He got into YouTube just out of curiosity. He was sharing some of his productivity stuff. Channel went to like 2 or 3 million followers, and now he's making literal millions from YouTube, right? But he said that it's often the thing that he didn't think would take off took off, and now he's only known as that. So he kind of struggles with that kind of mentally, because now he's just a YouTuber. He's not a doctor anymore, but he spent 8 years becoming a doctor.
Yeah, like the identity crisis was a big thing. Like as you said, like I think to a lot of people I was Dave the bodybuilder. And originally I tried to switch that and be Dave the coach. You know, like the Dave the coach, and tried to obviously like I built my Instagram off like bodybuilding. Now, when I say built it, like I don't have half as many.
Yeah, true. You know, but you put time, effort, you put all that kind of into it, man. There's loads of stuff involved with it. You know what I mean? It's not just fucking pictures, like.
And like I'm not comfortable putting up pictures without my top on anymore. So I needed to completely change it. Like we've the podcast, we've the YouTube, all that was built. Like the business was built on bodybuilding. Like, you know? So,
man, you should be built on Dave, not Dave the coach or whatever, you know what I mean? It's your personal brand that you should be leaning into, you know? So
we're actually doing, by the time this podcast comes out, I'm hoping to kind of have something out there about it, but within Level Up, we are, I'm creating a new section of Level Up, which will be called LVLUP Lifestyle, and that is going to be my side of it, you know what I mean? Because obviously you said, like, me and Ryan were, you know what I mean, doing everything together, and then we were disconnected, and then like I felt like I wasn't pulling my weight for a long time because I wasn't putting out bodybuilding content. I wasn't putting out, like, I was putting out fitness content, but I was still trying to find my feet with it. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't think it was anything like really to brag about or anything like that. It's just literally trying to go from being a bodybuilder to this general lifestyle, and it's two completely different ways of promoting yourself, and not even promoting yourself, but ways of living your life. And like, it's just documenting it and putting it out there. But I didn't know how to do that because it was just bodybuilding. It's
fucking carbs, calories, protein, and fat, like.
And like everything that literally, like, like you don't have breakfast, lunch, dinner. It's meal 1, 2, 3. And just everything that I was kind of like preaching before, I had to contradict and kind of go the other way with it, you know. And now I'm a couple of months down the line, I'm finding that balance in my life. I'm finding how to go out and see your friends, and, you know what I mean, still be able to go to the gym, and like, you know, if you go on a night out, not be just thinking, oh my god, I'm doing 2 weeks progress, you know what I mean? And that was a big mental switch. It was like, and I'm still kind of coming around to it, but getting better at it, and just trying to document that along the way and put that out there. And anyways, back to the business, like I felt like I wasn't pulling my weight with that. So this Level Up Lifestyle is going to be a new approach, like fresh approach. I'm going to be doing like my own thing with it, and that's going to be my side of it. And then Ryan and Jim are going to have the bodybuilding side of it. You can
get creative with that as well, man. You know what I mean? You can have your own kind of creative approach. But I think if anything, it's kind of, you went around like a circle to get back to your original kind of part, is that you're better on maybe the personal side, the more interactive side, you know. And by you just sharing these experiences does resonate with people, because not everyone wants to be the bodybuilder. You know, there's lifestyle fitness people want. Even like me, I wouldn't necessarily classify myself as like a, you know, those top tier bodybuilders. I just train regularly. I want to balance it with everything else in my life. Does that make sense? So you can kind of lean better into that side of it, and you can get super creative. Like that element is called creative freedom. Like, you can get down, start that kind of lifestyle business, work with people who, you know, could be very very stressful jobs, or want a different kind of perspective on things, you know. And I think it's less about carbs, fat and protein for you, and more about, you know, you're helping them work through the psychological side as well as the training side, because that's majority of the business, you know.
And I suppose one thing that took me a while to kind of come around to was resonating with real people who have real jobs, and who, you know what I mean, because
people buy from people.
I was like, I think when obviously like the online coaching and everything is great, and a lot of kind of successful bodybuilders will have an online coaching business, and you know what I mean, it's easy to preach like this is how you do it, and like, you know what I mean, this is the right way. But like, you're working for yourself. You can plan out your day however you want, you know what I mean. A lot of people,
you work 4 days a week.
Like literally, like I don't have a family. Like, none of my friends have families. They're not trying to balance that. And I suppose when I kind of stepped out of that bubble that I was in, like I started, like when I was talking to people, socializing with like other people who I wouldn't have not had the time to, but you know, I wouldn't have I suppose I had the time to when I was doing bodybuilding, like seeing old friends and like seeing my family more and talking to my family more. You start to remember kind of like the real issues that people have, you know what I mean? That's not just coming in on a check-in sheet. Because I think it's all well and good when you're reading on a check-in sheet, like, oh yeah, sleep was being affected because of my kids or whatever. It's just kind of like something that's written down on paper. But when you're talking to people and you can, have these conversations, like it sets in a little bit more. And I was very disconnected from that from a long time, and it was very easy to be like, you know, like as a bodybuilder and as a bodybuilding coach, like, you know, this is what needs to be done.
Just get it done, yeah.
Get it done. Do you know what I mean? Like, and yeah, yeah.
What advice do you have for people who want to become like an online coach?
Be yourself and don't follow Instagram and what you think you have to do to be an online coach, because I think that's what everyone do. Like, people start posting stuff, preaching like, say, practices or ways of training or whatever, and they don't even understand it. Do you know what I mean? Because they feel like that's what you should be posting, because that's what the top online coaches are posting. And I think what people forget when you're trying to start an online coaching business is everyone tries to talk up. You know what I mean? Say if I'm there and I'm putting out posts, I'm trying to impress the people who are more advanced than me to make it seem like I know as much as them. And you know what I mean? I've worked with some high profile people and I can see it up, like that's all the way up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas you should be not talking down to people, but talking to the people who are less advanced to you, because they're the people who are going to take value from what you can say.
It's like the ladder effect. Like, you don't need to be at the top of the ladder, you just need to be a couple of rungs ahead, and then you can help people beneath you. Exactly. And then they can uplift, and then in the process of you doing that, that's how you uplift and how you go into the next area, you know?
Yeah.
I forget the name of Josh and TMC's coach, if you can remember it. Callum, yeah. So he, on their podcast, Off the Cuff, have you ever listened to it? Yeah. Fucking sick production. But basically, man, Callum has 185 like podium positions or some shit. And the whole idea was just that, like, he just levels to the game, you know what I mean? It's levels to the podcast game. You know, you don't just come in and fucking record with 2 cameras and professional lighting.
Yeah.
You slowly, incrementally improve. You come in with no biases. You come in with no like preconditions of what you think people want or whatever, and you just slowly level up from there. And I heard that Callum guy works like 16 hours a day every day for like 10 years or some shit.
Crazy, man. Callum is a workhorse. Callum was, I think, Ryan's not his first coach, but like when we were together, he was his first coach, and Callum coached me for 2 months before I stopped bodybuilding as well. Like that was kind of like, after prepping that, I tried to give it like one more go with kind of like a safer use approach, and I thought, right, if anyone's the man to do it, Cal is the man. And when it wasn't working with Cal, that's when I was like, right, I'm going to step away from this. But he's top of the game. He really is, like.
But he didn't start out by saying he's the fucking pro and he's the bro. And that's the thing, is that like, when we go back to the original idea, like where everyone's looking at you on Instagram, you think that when you start something, you need to go to 100. You need to be the guy, you know? Yeah. But you don't. Like, you just need to like figure things out, slowly have it. I think timelines are important there as well, because like, I speak to a lot of people, man. I speak to a lot of founders, I speak to a lot of startup people, I speak to a lot of solo entrepreneurs and stuff. And the common theme that I get when things are not going well is the fact that they're like, oh, it's going to happen like really soon, and we're going to build this business and we're going to get it really soon. I'm like, we don't really need to do it now, though. You know what I mean? This is the biggest thing I always think. Everyone's like, oh, I need like fucking 5 clients or 10 clients or make a 10K a month. And I'm like, do you really? You can get to that stage eventually, you know? But like, Rob Libs didn't go to that stage. He started out online. He was working in Hollister. He was doing plans in the back of Hollister for a while. He did that for a while. When he let his salary from Hollister equal what he made online, he just dropped his job. Then he went into online coaching, and he slowly, incrementally improved. Whereas, like, I don't know, it's an issue in our like it's an issue of our age, is the fact that we just see people who get like that, not necessarily overnight fame, but who seem to have got it easy, and we think we can get it easy.
Well, we definitely fell into that. Definitely, 100%. Because when we first started Level Up, like, I was, for a while, like, I was working with like kind of 4 or 5 people. I think Ryan had like 8 or 9, and we actually started a business mentorship. And
who was that with?
Chris Spearman.
Oh, I thought it was going to be with Mark Coles.
No, Chris Spearman. And within 2 months, we went from less than 10 clients between us to Team LVLUP having, I think it was 120 at the top, 2 months. And like that, because we accelerated so fast, we were like, right, we just need to keep this going. And what that was it was just sales, marketing, like bullshit, pretty much, like, and that's not what we wanted to do. So we scaled that like right back, and we went from 120 down to, I'd say I was working with like, I think 15 clients, but we were building it the way we wanted to build it, being ourselves, being bodybuilding coaches, like, rather than convincing people that they need to be coached off us, like, you know what I mean, having conversations with people and like drawing people in naturally, like,
Yeah. Like proper lead generation versus like
just
yeah
marketing, like,
shit,
yeah,
pissing fucking spark on the internet. Yeah.
And then because we had scaled back so much and we were building it, and it had gone so it had blew up so fast the first time, we were trying to do that with our bodybuilding side as well, you know. And I suppose that was like kind of, we started doing the YouTube, the podcast and stuff like that, and that's when we were like chasing it relentlessly. But I anyway, I'm not speaking for Ryan or whatever, but I should have kind of done what you said, and you know what I mean, let it be a little bit more natural.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of got us to where we are now.
There are lessons though. I think with every, like, I wouldn't say failure, but with every hiccup you do get better at things, and then you're going to go into your lifestyle stuff, learn from your mistakes, hopefully. Like, the only thing worse than making a mistake is doing it twice. Like, if you do the same shit twice and fuck it up, then that's wholly your fault. But I think, like, there's nothing wrong with going from 15 clients to 120 if that's the goal, if that's your objective, but then you learn from it and try and make it better next time. I think that's it's a harsh learning lesson, but that's insane though, to get to that level so quickly.
Yeah, it was pure sales. Like, I was in sales before, you know, as a job.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I remember in that mentorship course, like, we were only in it like 2 or 3 weeks, and I was demonstrating sales calls on it. Like, if I got someone on a call, they were signing up. That's it, like, do you get me?
Yeah.
And it was just such bullshit trying to get people in, like, you know, putting up polls and then writing to every single person who voted on the poll, and, you know, just like that kind of stuff, like the stuff you don't want to be doing as a coach. Like,
I think as well, I had this discussion on who I was with recently, was the fact that I feel like online coaching is more on the psychological side, and it's more on the personal side, whereby you're bringing someone through like an actual journey and transformation. Like, you're trying to improve their lifestyle, even if it is bodybuilding, their training, their nutrition, and their overall lifestyle, so they have better, like, you know, better engagements. If they're a little bit older, you know, better engagements with their kids, their family, and whatnot. And then I feel like the opposite of that, when you're doing like consulting, like straight consulting, you can be on that sales side and push a bit deeper, because like, you're not really dealing with someone's actual health and their metrics around food and training and stuff like this, you know, so you can be a bit more salesy then. But I think there needs to be a bit more of a softer touch if it's going to be someone's nutrition you're dialing on a regular basis.
It's so more like bodybuilding's a little bit more specific to the numbers, the training, the nutrition stuff, but there is still an aspect of it, and it's way bigger with lifestyle. And your job can be essentially counseling at times, do you know what I mean? It's not just people's, like, obviously physical health, but it's their mental health as well, do you know? When people come to you with problems, and if you don't care about your clients, you can't help people with stuff like that. Even though, like, you're convincing people that you're the person to go to, but you're not actually following through on it then, you know? And like you said to me, like, earlier on, like, what's a tip to someone starting out coaching? Like, a big part of it is just like caring about your clients, and it's something that so many people don't do. Now, again, not everyone, and I think like any of my friends and the bodybuilders, like, they all do a fantastic job at this. But with the industry growing so much now, in like, say, the online coaching side of things growing so much, people don't realize this, and I think so many people want to get in and they just want to, you know what I mean, work 2 hours a day texting people and, you know what I mean, just banging out a plan as quick as possible and firing it out. And then once someone gets in and pays you the money, they're like, oh, they're just trying to get new people all the time. Whereas the best way to do it is just put the time and care about the people you already have, because those are the people who will go off to, like, they do your sales for you. They go off, they tell their friends, they, you know what I mean, Mary, who works with all her friends in wherever she works, like, you know what I mean, sitting at lunch breaks, telling them, like, oh, like, Dave, the coach, like, you know what I mean, he's doing wonders for me. Like, they do it for you. Whereas I think people forget about this, and it's just always Instagram, trying to pull in new people that way. And like, once people get in and pay you the money, they're kind of pushed to the side.
Yeah, and it happens a lot in different aspects of business too, because what you're referring to there is like building clients that come back and they stay with you, whatever, because they might use you for like 3 to 4 months, whatever, but that concept is like your monthly reoccurring revenue. They're coming back every month and they're paying you. You want those more so than like the higher value quick ones. And that's what, you know, it's a bit of a mind shift game that like people are thinking, oh, we just need, you know, short-term clients. Like it's satisfying short-term needs, but you need the long-term look. And you just see, okay, if I do a really good job here, can that client, the lifetime of the client expand? As well as that, can they then write testimonials? Can they be in work? Can they be discussing with their friends and bringing other opportunities? And this is across all different lifestyle, I think, man. You know what I mean? When you're working with people buy from people. They don't buy from... And that's why I was kind of saying to you about the level up thing, is that your personal brand is you. You know, ultimately, like, people are going to be working with Dave. If they want bodybuilding, they work with Ryan and Jimmy, or is it Jim? Jim. And people buy from people. They're not as obsessed with the fact that Level Up now has 1,000 subscribers or 2,000 subscribers or whatever, you know?
Yeah. It took me a while to realise that, man. It really did. Like, I think when I was just when I did step away, I thought it was like I'd lost everything.
But man, trust me, that happens to everyone. The only reason why I understand is because I've had 2 Instagram accounts deleted for kickoff sessions. Both deleted. Fuck knows, I'm not selling OnlyFans shit. I've no idea. I literally cannot tell you why they're both deleted. Since we recorded on your podcast, I had a new one deleted. Oh, quite. So I think this is my hypothesis, is that the platform that I host with got hacked, and rumor has it that if emails are scraped, they can be put through some condenser, and then they just target accounts and they report them for every reason, every photo individually, and gone. That's what I've heard. I don't know, is it true? I have forgotten about it. But basically, when that happened, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to do it a third time. And a girl, Abigail Barnes, who was on my podcast once or twice, a few times anyway, she got onto me and she was like, fuck the brand. She was like, fuck the name. She was like, people are interested in you. She was like, just grow your business. Just grow like your experience and who you are, and push your brand, and people will come. And then at the time I was like, at the time I did see a dramatic decrease in downloads, engagement, reach, all that kind of good stuff. But over time it came back. I think that happened last September, November. I lost, let's say, 40% of downloads in those periods. And then over time, it just built. Get good guests, record good podcasts. And at the end of the day, you could change it to my own name. You know, that's kind of the way I can. And that's why I changed my YouTube, man. So my YouTube is not called Kickoff Sessions anymore. It's called Darren Lee. And it's way easier to grow. Yeah. Because people literally see the logo and they're like, okay, I'm going to click subscribe. Whereas they saw some fucking zoomed out word that I had written. And it's a different approach. Now, someone might tell me differently that, you know, they've grown a brand very easily. But you may have seen this. It's like a common like image. Like, you look at how many followers Microsoft has, and it has like 20 million. You look how many followers Bill Gates has, it's like 50 million. You look how many followers Tesla has, it's like 30 million. Look how many followers Elon Musk has like 500 million. You know, so Elon Musk could come out with fucking shitcoin tomorrow and it would still do well because it's him. Yeah. And I felt, for me, like, as I tried to extrapolate, and I always try to look like super long term, like could I do a tech startup? Could I do a complete solo business? Could I do this? I'm like, ultimately, that will, the success in initial launch or whatever will come from who I am, not from a previous brand I built or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
But it's tough though, you know what I mean? And everyone gets so clung up on the name and the logo and stuff like this. So like I would say fuck the logo. I would say just focus on, as you said, all the personal side of things, doubling down on that and letting that come to the forefront.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I'm coming around to it now. Like I'm definitely seeing things. Like my perspective has been broadened a lot.
How was your perspective change just on life? Like what do you value now that you didn't value before?
Stuff like this, man. Like traveling, you know what I mean? Spending time with my friends, spending time with my family. Like I saw my friends more in the last month before I came here than I did probably in definitely more than the 2 years I was bodybuilding, you know. And yeah, just making memories, like, because I think like it was cool looking back on like going to Ultraflex and, you know, doing those crazy sessions with Ryan and stuff like that, but I hadn't been anywhere, hadn't seen anything, hadn't, like, you know, the extent of my like meeting new people was having exciting guests on the podcast, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm loving actually just living life like
experiencing new stuff.
Yeah, experiencing new stuff and
broadening horizons, man. And that's a big thing that happens with small town mentality too. You know, you go to school, you go to college, you get a job, you go back to where you lived, and you don't go any further. It's actually a really good. I'm gonna fuck up this quote, but this guy on Lex Friedman recently, and the quote is "Where you started doesn't have to be where you end up," and it's such a great quote, man, because I think that like epitomizes a lot of people who try to go do something and then they go back to the center, you know. And he was referring to people who are coming from disadvantaged backgrounds and whatnot, and they kind of go through life with this kind of like burden, as if like, you know, because where I came from I can't go any further and stuff like this. So for you it's cool to see that like you're finished that side of your life, close that chapter, now the new chapter is lifestyle business, lifestyle coaching, maybe even more stuff online, and just experiencing new stuff and keeping going, you know what I mean? Moving somewhere new, going somewhere new. And yeah, do you see that quote from Elon Musk? It was like, or the meme, it was like the Jesus face, no?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So funny. Like it's like, what to say? It's like a guy's like, oh, give me a sign. The man's like, put down your phone and go outside.
Yeah.
It's just basic things, you know?
Oh, and he's like probably the most entertaining person on the internet. I love him.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's funny though, just getting out and just doing things versus that could be starting a business. It could be, you know, when you said that you felt very like alone and isolated, you got into Level Up and taking those examples and going further.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And definitely like I'm still not, you know what I mean, steady at the moment. Like there still is that like sense of lost, and as I said, like I'm only kind of still trying to get back and find my love for training again and like find that passion. Yeah, I haven't found it yet, but the search continues.
Definitely. Last thing I want to say, or kind of one of the final stuff, is about like health. Like, how do you define health now compared to what you would have perceived?
Like again, I think it's a bit biased because like obviously my situation was like the extreme
of course
side of it, like, but rather than being the biggest, strongest person in the room, like, which I was like, that's all I wanted to be, you know what I mean? I wanted to be that big guy. I wanted people to say like, what the fuck, when they saw me, like that, like that's what I wanted back then. Whereas now I'm happy being able to, you know what I mean, go off on a hike with Shola, or man, there was times where I could literally, like, when I say like walk 100 meters, like I'd walk 100 meters, I'd have to lean against something and have a lower back pump, and there'd be sweat pissing out of me, and like it was bad. Like, whereas,
but man, that happens for a lot of bodybuilders too. Just like not even like high end competitors. I remember years ago hearing Joe Delaney on a video say that, who the fuck was it? It was some brand like Bulk Powders or Legend London called him like an athlete, like in an email. He was like, oh, like one of our athletes, and he said that he felt like literally like an imposter because he said he walks up a flight of stairs and he on his bulk and he feels out of breath.
Yeah.
Do you get me? And he's a very lean guy, like probably the same weight as, a little bit probably heavier than me, but even at that stage he didn't do that much cardio in a bulk or whatever, and he said he felt like an imposter at that stage. So it's a
but like I can see it as well, like that, like it sounds a little bit fucked up, but there's a lot of enjoyment being able to, like, knowing that you can like lift 5 times the amount as what a normal person can, like, and just do stupid things that, like, because that would have been my, like, definition of kind of, like, you know what I mean, where I wanted to go, and like being in shape and being fit, and like it's just different for other people, like, you know what I mean. Now I can, like, we want to do like a hike here, like, and I just, like, I can do that no problem. I done just before I came over here, the big walk up around Cumshanon and Waterford. Like, I thought I'd never be able to do that again, like, and just little things like that now, like being able to go off for the day with Shola if I want to, be able to walk my dog, like, do you know what I mean? Little things like that, like, mean so much to me now, and I kind of, I missed them when I wasn't able to do them.
How's your diet like now? Because I know you obviously coming out of bodybuilding where we fixated on carbs, fat and protein, but now, like, adjusting to like a regular style diet.
I'm getting there. Like, I was very fucked up for a long time after bodybuilding. Like, I've never been a big eater, and obviously doing bodybuilding, then I just got it done, force fed myself, and then when I didn't have to do that anymore, I had like this fucking PTSD from eating, like, you know what I mean? And I was never hungry. Like, I didn't feel hunger. I could go literally a full day without eating and not feel hungry. I'd just get more sick as the day went on, and then when I started eating, it would make me feel sick and I wouldn't be able to eat a lot. So for about 6 months, man, I was eating like less than 1,000 calories a day, and like it was really, really unhealthy.
How did you feel? Did you feel tired?
Yeah, just felt like shit, man.
Because
like,
you didn't, like, you weren't taking in any calories, so
no. No energy, wasn't sleeping great. Like, mood was fucking like really bad. It was just an awful time, but that's coming around now. And yeah, I feel like I can, like, to answer your question, like, what's it like now? I try to have a breakfast, lunch, dinner, and if I feel hungry in between, I'll have a snack.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't have like this big pre-workout meal before I go train, nothing like that. Like, I'd still, like, obviously have my knowledge from bodybuilding. I know what foods are good, what foods are bad. Like, this morning I went in, you know, just had like bacon, eggs and sourdough toast. Like, that's what I would have had for my breakfast when I was doing bodybuilding, like. So I still have it, and I still do, like, apply that, like, to like good quality foods. And that's, I suppose, when I say I eat a breakfast, lunch and dinner, I'm not going off and just like getting up and having cereal, and that's it. Like, I'll still try have a healthy serving of carbs with decent bit of protein, and, you know what I mean, like a reasonable number of fats, like, and the meals kind of do look similar to when I was bodybuilding, but I don't look at it as meal 1, meal 2, pre-workout, post-workout, meal 5. Do you know what I mean?
Would you experiment with different types of diets? Like, would you, because, like, you know, you're kind of adjusting your food, would you go back to maybe like a lower carb diet, maybe a no carb diet, maybe a keto, maybe a carnivore? Like, the reason why is I'm looking more and more into this stuff recently, and even myself, like, as in when I'm this deep into a cut, I'm always like, oh, like, I wonder, is my diet the best? Maybe when I'm not cutting, I can get a bit more experimental, but like, I've done a carnivore diet before and I did it really poorly. Like, I didn't like optimize it. I just had meat in that period and I felt like shit from it. Did it for like 3 weeks. I remember I was living with the guys and I was literally like smashing like 2,000 calories just like beef and fucking chicken and steak every day, but I should have balanced it more with some fruit. I should have balanced it with like honey, you know. I should have done a bit more like research of it. So I kind of want to do it again. I've tried to go into ketosis several times, and I think I want to just like experiment more, because I don't know, like, what we kind of know about the traditional kind of food and stuff has kind of been fucking wrong anyway. So I'm open to more experimental in that kind of area.
At the moment, no, because I'm just trying to, well, get back into like a healthy relationship with food again. So I think adding like trying these new diets and stuff, it would just kind of mess that up. My priority at the moment is finding an area of training that I'm passionate about. When I get when I get into something, then I'll start looking at tidying up the diet a little bit in order to suit whatever it is.
You can't do everything at once.
And like, I suppose that's kind of what happened with bodybuilding. It was a complete switch, and like, it was just all in on bodybuilding. But yeah, just, I suppose when I find my love and passion for something again, I might look at, you know, changing up the diet to suit that. But for the moment.
But you don't even need to though. That's exactly it. I think if you got more into kind of boxing, Thai boxing, like kickboxing, whatever you do, like some martial art outside of it, the more you train, the more you're gonna kind of want to eat well, and you're gonna get that appetite. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. And like, say when I do find, say if it is boxing, for example, like I will look into what boxers eat leading up to a fight, and you know what I mean.
Yeah,
what
you'll get more into it.
Yeah, I learn about it as I go along, but until I find, like, I'm experimenting with so many different things at the moment, and I am like looking up little bits, but I don't want to dive
Man,
100% in on something when I might change what I want to do in a month or two.
Man, I took a bit of time out of bodybuilding during COVID, just because like gyms were closed. I was sick fucking shit of like rowing a school bag, that I moved into marathon running, and I was planning on doing it anyway. So my plan was to run a marathon in Sweden before COVID hit. Do like 16 weeks preparation for it, right? 2 short runs a week, which are still like 10k, and 1 long run a week, which is about 25k. I was feeling like anxious about, like, you know, getting good at running and eating well and whatnot. I was eating 7,000 calories a day, every day.
Jeez.
And man, when I kind of got to its most intense, so the marathon got cancelled, but I was fully trained for it, because during COVID, it was in May of when COVID hit, so like 2 months after, you know. Then they pushed it. I was planning on doing it in August, but couldn't even do it at the end of that period, because it got cancelled again, of course. But during that period, I was doing like about 15k on a Tuesday, 15k on a Thursday, and 30k on a Saturday. And man, you should have seen the amount of food, because basically I had to try to keep as much muscle as possible. I would pump as much carbs into me, maybe like 500 to 600 grams a day, like literally like 2 pizzas a day if I needed to. I'd get back from a run and have maybe like 8-9 eggs, 2 or 3 bagels, and it was nuts. To be honest, I kind of want to do it again, because like I do want to. I love the idea of doing very difficult stuff, like very, very challenging things that it's like no one can do, but that only a short amount of people that can really go through and do the preparation for. So I wanted to do a marathon for that reason, not because a marathon is that difficult, but then I wanted to do an ultra marathon. So I ultimately, and I still do, it's not kind of on my roadmap of things I want to do, is I want to do like the 100Ks, and I think that's kind of where I want to go to next, not in the short term, but definitely over the next couple of years, is as you wind out of bodybuilding.
Yeah. That's so cool, man. Yeah, and like having an exit strategy or a backup strategy like that is,
it's just doing something different. Because for me, I do love training with boxing. I did it in university, but if I train with boxing, I can't really train in the gym. I've often found that, like, I'll wake up, or small things like my wrists will be fucked from boxing, or from the gym, and they both like hurt each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I remember myself and Tom would train on like a Monday night and be doing pads, whatever, and my wrist wouldn't be sore, but it's the next morning going to the gym, try to bench 110, and then my wrist would be sore as a result. So there was kind of like that conflict of interest. And then for running, for me, then I think just as a sprinter when I was younger, I was just always naturally good at it. I'm not good at long distance, but then I just got so obsessed with not necessarily the idea of running, but how guys were, you know, it wasn't even a physical thing. This is what's so interesting. Like, none of it was even physical. It was all just like mental. And that became more important, because you hear like the term runner's high. That became more appealing to me than training in bodybuilding. And that's how things kind of develop, and you develop new interests and new hobbies, you know?
Yeah.
But it's fucking cool, man. If you see some guys run really far, like the guys are running like Connemara in the winter, 160k. Like, I would say, man, 80% of that is mental. 20% of it is physical.
Yeah.
All the physical stuff is just a training that's done in the background. It's all done. But then when it gets to the go time, I would say all of it is mental.
Yeah, and like that's something that I'm loving at the moment, is like when I am kind of going around and, you know, dipping my feet in like a few different things, seeing the people who are so much further ahead than me, and looking at them just being like, wow, like that's super impressive.
Like watching a sick boxer.
Yeah, like, and I suppose when I was just so accustomed to bodybuilding for so long, I wasn't looking at anything like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now that I'm kind of, and I think watching something and then trying to do it are two completely different things. Like obviously I've watched boxing and Muay Thai and all that before, but then when you go in and you're starting from scratch and you realise how hard it is, and then you're watching the people, like it's a different appreciation for it.
How fucking sick is that kind of like novelty that like that you're a nobody in boxing. So like, you know, you're good at bodybuilding, whatever, you're good at building like a like a coaching business, but you pick up boxing, man, you're a fucking nobody, you're bottom of the food chain. And that's what I actually love, is the zero element. And that's why I'm always interested in new like ideas for like opportunities for businesses and whatnot, is that I actually like the area of surprise of not being good at anything, you know. And I've said that previously, even in jobs. Like I've walked into companies in the past and said, like, you know, I know nothing here, I know something about something over here, but I know nothing about this. I will get better at doing it because I know how to literally get better at things. And I think that's a huge thing. Is like you learn how to get good at stuff, you know.
And I said it at the start of the podcast, like, and it's just about like putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation until you get comfortable with it. Like there's so much enjoyment out of that, but you pick up so much like life skills by doing it. Like even like coming in and sitting on this podcast, like I remember 2 years ago just picking up my phone and taking 3 days to put up one talking story on my phone. Like, do you know what I mean? That is something, and it's something that I was extremely uncomfortable with at the time, but it's now a skill you can do. I haven't done anything like this in a while now, but you can just sit in and do it. Like,
this is the toughest skill. I would say that recording podcasts are literally so difficult. You know what I mean? And it's that acquisition of skills, and it's the idea that you are effortless in this. You know what I mean? You're very, very effortless. Comes very natural to you. That alone is the biggest skill to learn. You know what I mean? And not a lot of people can do it. That's why for someone from the outside, they'd be like, oh, I'd love to get into podcasting and whatnot. And that's what I see, that people contact me saying, oh, they want to start something. It's like, okay, we need to go through the first 10 episodes whereby we test their voice and we get confident. And you listen to my earlier episodes, they're absolutely shit. But that's the whole idea, is that I remember very interesting my throat, sorry. Very interesting inflection point was I was obviously like a shit talker when I was younger. Obviously, you know, but it was like I enjoy speaking with people, right? But then when you move into podcasting, it's a skill, 100%. You know, it's the preparation, it's the planning, whatever. When I started it, I remember how bad it was, but I remember thinking to myself that I know that this is going to get better, and I know that the fundamental skills that I have underneath, which is ability to talk, the ability to interact, hopefully make you feel a bit comfortable, I can bring those out. But it's just the time. I just need time under my belt. So I remember releasing the earlier episodes. I remember saying if I get to 10, I'll get better. If I get to 20, when I get to 50. And again, it wasn't like thinking and like, oh, I need everything to be perfect. But I was slowly building it up. But the underlying skills were getting better. I was getting better equipment. I was recording with bigger guests, let's say. And every time I did it, it was getting better. But everyone that I see a lot of times is that they want to all go from the very beginning. And if they can't get it, they're not going to release the episodes. Yeah. You know, and I'm like, just play the long game. Like, don't be playing this fucking short-term horizon of literally 30 days. People are thinking 30 days ahead and they're going to give up at the end of 30 days.
Yeah. Yeah, and I suppose like that comes back to similar to what I was saying earlier on, is everyone looks up. Like, do you know what I mean? Like when you're looking up at, say, if you're thinking about releasing a podcast, like you're thinking of the big podcasts and you're thinking you should be at that level, when like the people who would actually tune in and listen to your podcast, they're just like, wow, this person can sit down and talk on a podcast. That's amazing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And
it's like what people value. It's in like, to me, it's like, oh, I need it to be as big as this podcast or that podcast, but someone else might just want to fucking listen. You know, and they're just happy to kind of share that experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting take. How was your first experience on a live podcast?
Man, I really enjoyed it. Yeah. The studio was cool. Like, you kind of zone out of it. You forget your...
I don't even know how long we're recording for. But man, I want to say a massive thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, bud.
I appreciate it, man. And we'll do many more in the future.
Yeah.